good evening or afternoon to us all, to you all. It's the discussion tonight is meant to try to present and portray the happenings that happened a few weeks ago in various mixed cities in Israel, and we will of course concentrate on our city of Akko. We will try to give various perspectives as to what happened, why it happened, what we, each and every one of us experienced and the way we see things. The idea is not to cause controversy and argue, but to be patient and open to hear various perspectives. And for this matter, we have together a panel of 4 participants. The first of them will be Albert Ben Shloosh, who for the past 60 years has been living in Akko, deeply involved in all and everything that happens from various perspectives, and it will be very interesting to hear his point of view. We have Naim Obeid, an educator who runs the ACAT Education Center, living in Akko as well, with his very deep understanding of the society of Akko, and he has his very unique and interesting perspective. We will hear Yona Fleisher, again an educator who lives in Shavei Zion and is well involved in things that happen in Akko, and myself, who lives and has been living next to Akko for the past nearly 60 years, and I have my own perspective. Before we jump into hearing each and every one of our points, I would like to request our Israeli chair, Elisha, to say a few words of welcoming.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of, sorry, are we okay?
No,
on behalf of Leslie Kramer and myself, Leslie, the American co-chair, who unfortunately can't be on this call, and myself, we're very proud to host this evening, and thank you so much for joining on such an important evening where we'll hear various opinions and thoughts which we don't all necessarily agree with one another, but it's important to hear all of them. And the most important thing is that we can have an event such as this and talk about these things, and hopefully a new harbinger of co-sharing and co-living in a shared society. So perhaps, Michael, you want to take the reign from here.
Yes, for sure.
Participants, that's lovely.
I would like to state, thank you, Elisha, and I would like to state that the events that we experienced are to a certain extent traumatic, and will take time in order to understand the deep effects that they might have on the longer term. And they, of course, portray before us the difficulties which we have to come to terms with in mixed societies, with everything that entails. But it must be said that the deepest understanding that we do have is that eventually, however traumatic the events were, we see it as our business and as our definite message to try to get things back again to usual as fast as possible, and to try to repair what needs to be repaired, to try to understand what happened in order to try to fix them in a very constructive way. And I think that at this point it would be right for me to request Albert to present his point of view, his experience, his understandings. Please, Albert.
Okay, good evening, everybody. When I can start, it's very... I am living in Akko more than 60 years. And all my life, I believe in living together, in the coexistence, and all the time I work to build this relationship between Jewish and Arab all my life. It started when I got that I start to be the CEO of the Akko Festival. I build a lot of programs between Jewish and Arabs. I share with them everybody. Most of the worker I took, especially from the old city worker, who work in the festival in different jobs, because I believe in this, because I grow with them. We live in the same city together, and I believe that this should be the life. But months and a half ago, everything changed suddenly. It started with protesting with all the Arab leaders of the city. It was 1,500 people in this protest, and suddenly everything changed. The riot started. The leaders couldn't control all those young people that I understand it was about 180 young from 16 to 21. They did these riots that start to burn every shop or business that belonged to the Jewish in the old city. Even in the marine, the yacht, they burned the yacht, and everything was stores, and they start, they come to the stores and they took everything, all the market they took to the home, and it was really, really big mess. But what I disappointed from, first of all, the leaders couldn't stop those youngs. And the second, I disappointed from the Israeli police. Okay, it was the first night. They don't have enough police. Not the second, not the third, just after the fourth night, they stopped the riots. I'm very disappointed from the police of Israel. At the beginning, but I continue, even what that happened, I continue to be friendly with all Arabs friends. I didn't cut the relationship because that I believe that all my friends are a good persons, and I continue to trust them and believe them. I continue a lot to buy from the shops of the Arabs. Don't like a lot, most of the Jewish, they didn't go now to buy from the shops of the Arabs. All the business, they don't want to go to their shops or businesses. And, it's catch me when I start to work on the Arabesque Festival. It's the festival for Arab music, classical Arab music and Andalus music. And I continue to work on this festival because that I believe that just the music is a bridge between the person and the people, and they can bring them to sit together. And from the 24th to the 27th of August, it's going to happen in Akko, in the new culture center. They just finished to renew it right now. It's going to be open in the 17th of August. And what I can say, I'm disappointed, but I believe that maybe something will change. Maybe something was wrong in the education. Maybe they also burn everything that belongs to the government. For example, a police station or something, the Merkaz Shimur, how we say it in English.
Conservation Center.
Conservation, they burn it completely because it belongs to the antique ministry in Israel. So everything that's a symbol to the ministry, they burn it. So I really don't know what to say, what's going to be in the future. I really don't know. We try to find the solution. We try to find in many ways, and continue to be. But I was disappointed again last week that I heard from Tony that she said it was a meeting of the end of the year. And all the principal of the school gathered together, and the Arab principal, they didn't come to this meeting. I am very disappointed from this act, because the principle should be, for me, is this spotlight on everything. And if they decide don't participate in this meeting, it's a big red light for me. I really don't know what to say about it. But I believe that the life will come back again, and they found a solution. But all those people that did these wrong things, they should be punished. Must be punished, and strong punish, not easy. Because the people that work all their life to build a Zimmer or something like that, and all the money that they save in their life and investigate, they burn it. Some of the Jews start to come back. And we met some of them. Last week I spent 12 hours in the old city. And I met all of them. The business very low in the old city, very low. A little bit tourism in the old city now.
Albert, could you please, for those who are not completely clear as to what exactly happened, in a few sentences, just describe what happened in those 4 days? Nights.
Every night, the youngs came to all the Zimmers of the Jewish and start to burn them. Restaurants, it burned, completely burned. In a few places, it was almost people born, the people born, not the business born, the people. And it's very, some of the Arabs helped to save their lives. Yes, but all the business was born. 3 people almost killed. It was the lynch on one, the teacher, someone that he came to visit his mother, and one more young man that 27, that he also the lynch. In the last moment, someone that he worked in the hospital, Arab man, saved his life suddenly. But almost all of them was almost died. All those 3 people. They was very lucky. You can't imagine. You see I have a lot of movies how the business burning, and it was it's unbelievable. It's remind me. I can compare it what happened in the Holocaust. Exactly, that's what happened in Akko. Exactly as it was in the Holocaust in Germany. But I should say one thing more. They didn't touch religious place. They didn't touch. Only business and something that belongs to the government. We have synagogue in the old city. They didn't touch it. Like in Lod.
Okay, Albert, thank you very much. I'm sure that if there are questions, we'll revert back to you. I would like to ask Yona if you would please give your perspective.
Okay, thank you. I'm a specialist in the treatment of learning disabilities, and I'm a lecturer at the Western Galilee Academy and the University of Haifa. 20% of my students are Muslims, and some of them are from Akko. I live in a village between Akko and Nahariya, and I'm a mother of 2 students. My husband is an engineer in a factory where there is 100 workers. 70% of them are Muslims, Christians, and Druze. So we live together, we work together, and we educate each other. As a daughter of Holocaust survivors who left Europe, there is no other homeland to me than Israel. And fate and the history led us to live here together, Jews and Arabs, on the same land. I am proud that I'm a citizen in a democratic country. Our lifestyle is, our everyday routines includes freedom, liberty, and civic rights. And the events were, for me, it was a shock for me. It was very violent. And it also took me, as Albert said, to like a memory, dark memory from dark ages for the Jewish people, from the Holocaust or pogroms that my ancestors told me about before World War II in Europe. All the burning hate that we felt and the severe violence that erupted toward us without me raising a hand. And for me as a citizen here, it was something that evoked in me intense feelings of fear, anger, and militancy. And I kept thinking all those days, why so? How it happened, how it became so violent? Where did it come from? It shook my world, really. And around us, there is still a bad atmosphere. Everything now is silent, and we came back to regular routine life, or the daily life here is everything like it wasn't like nothing happened before, but the wound is still fresh, and people are not talking about it. Everyone is came back to work, and we meet each other, and there is no dialogue about what happened, because it's still very fresh, and a lot of emotions from both sides are still there. And but we have to deal with the consequences, and this made me think what we can do. And I believe that I must be on the sides that believe that it can be better. It must be better. I'm trying to look and search for moderate majority, to find the unifier, to strengthen those that publicly oppose the violence. And I'm trying to be these days partner of groups that try to mediate or attempts of dialogues again, make a dialogue again.
Thank you, Yona. Thank you very much. Naim, I would like to request you present your perspective and your experience. Naim, are you with us?
Naim, you're on mute.
Can somebody release his?
Yes.
Oh, now you're with us.
Thank you. Now you can unmute me. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Naim Obeid. I'm the CEO of ACAT, Akko Center for Arts and Technology. I'm glad to be here on this panel. Maybe I can add more light to a few things I'm involved in. I was born and raised in the city. Of course, I'm going to start with a few things so we can make it clear. We all condemn the violence that's been happening here from any side. So any of our talk would be different than this, of course. And also, I really add my voice to Yona and to Albert also. We all feel really disappointed in a way. And by the way, the more we are connected to our reality and to what's going on around us, to our surrounding, the more, of course, we are disappointed, because we are the people who used to be the ones who, works on our shared society. From my side, at least, I think I left a very successful business to work in shared society. Akko Center for Arts and Technology now deals exactly in the thing we're talking about, shared society, to bring people together. And the more you're connected, the more disappointed you are. But it hits me at the first 2 days, I was really shocked like everyone else. And then I needed to understand what's going on. We really need to understand in order to make it maybe differently. And around all of us, we're trying to understand first what's going on, and then we can take the right actions maybe to make it different in the future. And if people asked me a few years ago, what exactly you do at ACAT? I said, and it was recorded actually, we are preparing to the next conflict. We can't just, pretend to be that everything's fine, and the dynamics we live in is crazy actually, and we should be prepared. And the more we are prepared, the more the next conflict would be easy on us, and we wouldn't be surprised. I know a lot of us did a lot. Maybe it's not enough. Maybe we need to do it with a less effort but more productive. That's another question. And of course, all these questions and answers is also, I'm taking it to myself. This is my understanding. It's nothing, official, it's nothing scientific, but this is my understanding of what happens. And that day that this is started, first of all, my house just can show all around us, and I didn't notice thousands of people on the streets. So the facts is I did notice 15 youth here, 20 here, and maybe another 30 there. So a total of maybe 100, 120 that all made all the mess around us from each side, by the way. So it makes it easier when you talk about a city with 48,000 people, not the 40,000 went out to the streets. So 150, maybe 200, let's say 300 of total that made all what we heard about on the news. Now, what are our conclusions? Do we need to work in all our society, in all our shared community, or we need to work on those exactly? So a lot of questions. Of course, I'm raising the questions first and give you my understanding of things, and when maybe we can discuss it and we find the answers. But looking at the kids that we are there at this night, the average age was 13 up to 19. This is the kids, the youth were actually there. And I felt more hurt. You know why? Because my center works exactly in this target audience. But one thing made the difference at that night for me. None of the youth that went to ACAT and been in our program were they on the streets that day, because 180 of them were arrested and none of them were at ACAT program. So it looks like we did something right, okay? Which makes me believe that my work didn't just been wasted. So somehow, yes, we feel disappointed. From the other side, we need to make it right. So if I could make it happen for 480 students a year, which is almost almost 2,000 in the 4 past years, maybe we can do the same, but for 20,000. So it looks like when we deal with the conflict, and what we do there is actually we bring people together, and the earlier we bring them as youth, 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, it's not, this impact of meeting is not that bad. So what happened that night is most of these youth never met before, and one trigger made all the mess happens. And what made it even worse, we have a lot of elements that you should know about. First of all, I want to take out from the equation, the balance we're talking about. Jaffa, Lud, Ramleh, it's a different thing. I believe it's a different story from Akko. So I don't want to go into comparing between Akko, Lud, Ramleh. Maybe the factors there is totally different. I can speak on behalf on Akko community, from my feeling, from my knowledge of the community. And I felt few things, the youth were there. What's their motive? And Albert can correct me if I'm wrong. Some of the Arab businesses were burned too. And it didn't make sense to me. Why did this happen? Akkotel was burned, supermarket Mazindib was burned, the community centers that served the old city was burned. Uri Buri is a person that respects all, give all his attention to all communities, Arab before Jewish and Jewish before Arab. So I can't believe this is really happening. And one thing was missing from my understanding. Why did this happen? Why Arab people would burn an Arab business? And it looks like what Albert mentioned is the most important thing. He mentioned the weakness of the police officers. Nobody got in. Nobody did effects. We are in a leak of leadership, okay? Leadership are not effective anymore to these youth. Policemen are not talking to them at not that level. Their hope is actually, I'm talking about the old city now especially, okay? From the Arab sector, what do they have? The education system is failing, and we can compare that easily. They're failing in education. So their high hopes is to get a T-Max and a gun. A T-Max, by the way, is a very strong motorcycle that you use usually for delivery for drugs and guns issues. So the crime sector is growing. The policeman is getting, let's say, weak, okay? There's no, they're not presenting at the old city. We know exactly in the old city, where do we have drugstores? You can buy drugs actually in drug stations. And the police knows that too. And so this is growing. The weakness of the police, the crime sector, the crime families are, celebrating in the old city. So what's our option actually with the failure of the education? So these youth, what kind of security do they have? They're not thinking about the Technion or to university or going to college. This is not even in their spectrum. This is above all their expectations. And now we're looking at these youth doing nothing actually, hoping maybe they'll be okay. And let's talk about the equation here. I'm hoping that this kid is growing in a very bad environment to be okay, while his neighbor actually is offering him a gun which equals to security, okay, that the police can give him, okay, a better, society level from his options because he feels he belongs to someone that can protect him, okay. Probably he can give him also good money that we can spare to them, and we're hoping it's going to be okay. So somehow this is my understanding of where did we go wrong, okay? We're waiting to the educational department to grow bigger and better. We're hoping that the crime sector will grow or not, or there's a lot of elements that we left open. So my chances as a CEO of ACAT to convince them to come to a great program, they don't pay any tuition, okay? But the other options, I don't know if I can compete honestly with the other option. A lot of money. His dream actually as a youth to have a gun by 13 years old because he's not going to the army and he can't dream about a gun unless it's illegal, right? So he's gonna dream about a gun. He's gonna get his motorcycle, which worth like 93,000 shekels, which I can't afford, by the way, but he can by the age of 15, 16. The more he's extreme, he'll be more acceptable in his field of crime sector, right? So his certificate would be not from the Technion or from the university. He's probably going to have a great certificate from Instagram, Facebook, or the social media. The more he is extreme, he's going to get more likes. So what we are competing with, and let's ask ourselves, I'm going to start asking myself, what did I do to actually do something about it? This is my perspective, and this is my understanding. And in every crisis, we should look and analyze what's going on here. We probably went wrong. With all the respect, with a great shared society we think we have, with the great hummus we have together. Yes, we speak the same languages. Yes, we go to the old city, absolutely. But it's only maybe scrapping not the infrastructures, just maybe a little bit of our shared society. But if we say do we have shared events? That's what we're trying to do, by the way. Do we have more than good morning and good evening? No. Our community centers are separated. Our schools are separated. Our playground of youth are separated. So what are we expecting? Unfortunately, this is a sad fact. And if we don't change the facts, we're probably not going to change the results. So I'm glad to be here today to add from my perspective, what is really going on and where we should do better. I'm going to start by myself. For the first few days, I started understanding what's going on, and I shifted all our mission and our way of treating things differently, because we need to work it together. And by the way, we need all the efforts around the table to do so. I can't say with all the money in the world that any funder or any organization can help me do this alone. We need the government, we need the police officers and the policemen to be with us. We need the philanthropic area, we need the funders, and we need the right organization. Only all of us together could do the change. To weakness the crime sector, to grow with the educational center, to cover it with the great community centers, we have the right chances to win this, or maybe to bring it to another level.
Thank you very much, Naim. Your perspective is extremely interesting, and I'm sure it addresses from an angle that we don't hear enough, obviously. There are many questions here, but before we go to answer some of the questions, I would like to give you my perspective, my personal perspective. It's cooled down a bit since the past 6 weeks have gone by. But I must summarize my feelings as severe anger. Now, the anger comes in 3 specific points. Point number 1 being the riots happened when rockets were flying from Gaza to many cities in Israel. And to my mind, that's not the time for rioting, especially not on a supportive issue to support the Palestinians. You do that to demonstrate is legitimate, even I would say has to be. But when you want to give your opinion on the issues, wait until the rockets stop flying. That's number 1 issue that caused me a lot of anger. Number 2 issue that caused me a lot of anger was the lack of local leadership to try to constrain the anger and the rioting. Although I do understand that maybe the local leadership did share its voice, but the rioters weren't wishing, weren't ready, weren't open to listen, to hear. And it does coincide with what Naim explained as to the presence of crime, organized crime, or crime groups that are used to living beyond any level of authority, which is not combined to crime. The third level of anger, which is probably the strongest point of anger, is the huge disappointment that we all share from the police behavior. The police is the force that is supposed to maintain our personal security, and they simply failed us totally. To the extent that even when businesses were torched, they did not allow the fire brigade to reach the blaze without police escort, and they said there is no police escort, so they wouldn't even let the fire brigade in to the old city. Now, having expressed those feelings of anger, I do understand that the divide due to the affairs that happened is not only a divide between Jews and Arabs. It's a divide between law-abiding people and those that do not regard the law as something abiding, something that has to be forced upon. And that divide does not put Arabs on one side and Jews on the other. It definitely does not. And there are plenty of residents of Akko who are suffering the consequences and are angered at the happenings just as much as I am, and justly, of course. I think there are several other elements that have to be taken into consideration. And all the crime issue, first of all, it's very present and it's true, and I'm sure that Naim has not exaggerated at all. But if you add to the crime issue a nationalistic point of view from the Palestinian point of view, it enhances the flame. It's like pouring petrol on the flames. And it's an excuse, it's a justifier, and it does raise the flames to a higher level. And I think there is one other issue which we seem to sometimes not pay attention to. The old city of Akko is perceived by entrepreneurs as a gem, an unpolished gem, and there is plenty of people coming, trying to buy property in order to develop and turn into hotels, restaurants, art galleries, and so on, having in mind the like a kind of Oriental Bohemian scene, and sometimes they come with quite big money. The local residents seem to react to this as if they are trying to be pushed out of their homes. Many families living in Akko probably for hundreds of years, and they see this on a nationalistic level as something which they have to try to stop and prevent. And in any case, they do not relate to the investors necessarily in a positive way. We look at it as if the investors are providing jobs and developing and bringing in tourism and so on, which is obviously true. But there is another side to that coin, and we have to take into consideration that the local population do not necessarily relate to that in a positive aspect. I would like to relate to some of the questions which have been sent to us on the chat of this Zoom. And I would try to, I will ask them out loud and not necessarily direct them to somebody specific, but it seems to me that most of the questions are for you, Naim. So one of the first question was, did you have a discussion with your students? Do they have any insight on this? And do you think that COVID-19 isolation contributed to the problem? Naim, could you relate to those, please?
Yes, at the beginning, we took like a week or 2 weeks almost off. We just didn't push it. We didn't want to push it with our youth. But suddenly they started showing up to the center regularly, and slowly they came back together. But there was also one great message, because we deal with the youth and we deal with the adults for vocational training for people in a need for a job. So in both levels, we noticed that they're coming back. The adults insisted on coming to the center, and they didn't even miss one meeting. Even when we asked to delay it like in a week or something, people came in, and even one class of our students, of the makeup artists, they took a picture and they put it for the word in Facebook saying, we are all together here studying at ACAT and everything's fine. So they got real messages to say like, we can do this together, which is very important, because after all, we mentioned that the majority of people want to live together. They have no other choice. They have a lot in common together, and this is not a choice even. So either you can live together with the great options, or you can just make it as bad as it looks. Now, many people, and you mentioned a lot about the police and what's happening. I have to tell you, the Arab community is really happy about the movement of the police right now. The only thing we're saying is why it didn't happen before. Is it because now Jewish people were hurt, or because many people were saying this is really not good for us? I didn't feel secure to send my kids to the old city, and because of the crime, not because of any other issues. And now this has been happening for a while, and many people are saying we are feeling insecure, and insecure because of the crime sector. Do you know how many people were killed last year in the crime sector? We're talking about more than 12 people were killed between two families in the city, and nobody heard about it, probably not in the States. And if we compare things, there is a lot happening, and nobody's saying anything. But now we have a feeling to say, which is okay, and I totally understand, but I'm glad at least that we're coming to conclusion that we need to step up and do something about it, because when it hurts someone, it's probably going to hurt all. And that's what's going on right now.
I want to say that the policy in the academy was not to let any discussion or argument when we came back to the usual lessons. All the lessons this year were on Zoom, and we got the message from the management as lecturers and professors, not to allow any discussions between the students about what happened. So
okay, another question relates to what Naim said, that there were probably, the youth probably amounted to about 150 on both sides, and there was a request for a clarification on that, and maybe Albert or Naim, could you please relate to the issue of both sides?
I can relate, Albert, from what I saw from my balcony. My house is like located in the middle of the city, the center of the new city, but it can show up all around us. Like it can show also Hala Tarbut, the auditorium of Akko that Albert mentioned. I noticed the youth, you know, breaking it up, breaking the class, and I called the police, and the police told me we're not going to step in right now, and they were just around them. So I noticed like 5 kids here, 10 there, 15. I noticed actually 3 groups that they were running all around us and trying to do the damage. And by the way, they did a lot of damage. So that's what I saw from my view on the balcony or on my house. Exactly. I didn't notice hundreds or thousands. And I assuming there were a little more at the old city, but they didn't go out to the new city to make any damage. That's what I can tell. Over the news, like you guys, I watched like few coming from the Jewish sector trying to enter the center of the city, but also I didn't notice even in TV that there were thousands. And Albert can correct me if I'm wrong.
Would you like to relate to that, Albert?
Yeah, just in the 3rd days, the Jewish start to protest. They didn't burn or violent, or just protest. They came and protest against what's happened. But you know, to protest is the difference between burning and everything. It's a big difference.
Okay, thank you. There was another question here regarding why is there no Muslim or Druze or Christian? There is Christian. Why is there no Muslim or Druze presence on this panel? So I should say that we requested Ahmad from Sheikh Danoun, which some of you probably are familiar with. He manages the youth center in Sheikh Danoun, to be present on the panel, but on a pre-discussion that we held, he did not agree to the discussion terminologies and requested not to be present on the panel. And of course, we respect his request. But again, I also am sorry that we cannot hear another perspective on that issue, but we did try.
By the way, Michael, our staff is mixed. We have Druze, Muslims, Christians, yes, and Jewish in our center, and it's I think I can speak at least on my staff behalf, and we're all on the same side of this. So,
as I stand, that is so very true. That is so very true, and I can testify on that. There is a question, people asking, is Naim an Arab from Akko? The answer is yes and yes. A question to Albert, what was the reason, if you know, that the Arab principals did not attend the final meeting? Schooling is where role modeling can take place. Can this change and show solidarity?
You know, I heard it last week, like Sharon, everyone in the meeting of the chair, that Tony mentioned it. So I don't know, because there is something that belongs to the education system in the municipality. I don't know yet what's happened, but I'm waiting to hear what's happened there. So I don't know. But I want to add something that 3 or 4 weeks ago, I have a meeting with Naim. I came to visit him in ICAT, and he told me everything about what he said today. And I was very happy to hear what he's doing there. I'm sure that he is the bridge. Naim is the bridge between the people. Exactly.
Questions regarding the investigation, why the police did not respond. Well, the official statements that the police are releasing state that they just were under manpowered and they could not deal with the huge rioting that happened not only in Akko but in the whole vicinity. It should be stated that there are villages all around us where there were rioting, and the damage that was inflicted was in general, I would say, against government symbols, from street lighting to trash cans, to the municipalities, to police stations and police cars, anything that resembles or points towards government and government tools to govern. And the police simply state that they were just overwhelmed with calls for assistance beyond their ability. I do believe that the explanations are very bleak. And is anybody paying the price? I'm not sure I know to answer that one, but they should be. It should be stated that, as Naim pointed out, since the rioting, there have been large-scale arrests of the youngsters who took part in the lynching and the rioting, and a much higher level of police presence. But it does seem to me that it's like closing the barn doors after the horses have run out. But maybe it's better late than never.
Michael, there was another question by Natalie Silverman. If we know if the kids were all living in Akko or were they from outside?
Naim, Albert, can you answer that one?
All those kids from Akko.
Yeah, there were some rumors that some of them are not from Akko. I don't believe that.
Yes, but you know,
yeah, but I believe most of them.
Akko,
yes.
187 kids, people was arrested after the riots.
It should be stated that the local Arab politicians are calling for a release of those that are arrested on a basis of pinpointing Arab rioters only. And again, this does conflict with the position that I believe leadership should take. There is a question of what or how can people in the US assist? Well, this is a question we've been addressing. I'm not sure we have good answers as of now, but we are sitting on this. I do believe, and this is again my perspective as to what should happen from here on. I do believe that first of all, what is governing us all now is fear, and it's the wrong sentiment to be governed by. And we have to again regain our confidence in each other and in the way things are run and governed. And we have to renew our confidence in the fact that those who do decide to crime will be caught and punished. It's a process. The depth of criminal activities in the old city of Akko is way, way deeper than what we maybe understood or thought of beforehand. And there is definitely a feeling, there was definitely a feeling in Jewish society that if the problem is in the Arab society and it entails them alone, then let's let them deal with their own problems, and we don't concern ourselves too much with the consequences, which is a very shallow way to address this issue, because eventually it spills over and it affects us all. So I believe there is a certain, at least presently, a certain change in behavior. I think Albert spoke about before the issue of boycotting businesses in the old city. The old city as of present is suffering severely from the boycotting. It's not an organized boycott, but it's seeing as we're all governed by fear. Nobody wants to go and look for a good plate of hummus in the old city for fear of being, I don't know, attacked because of them being Jewish or what have you. And it does work on both sides. The Arab population from outside of Akko also does not tend to visit Akko and do its shopping in Akko for fear of being pinpointed as Arab rioters. So the fear affects us all, and we have to address this issue of boycotting because it does damage to us all. Eventually, we do understand that the Arab population of Akko is not going to disappear, and the Jewish population of Israel is not going to disappear. And we have no choice but to join hands and together address the issues and try to fight for a better future. We have just no other alternative. I do believe, and here our American friends maybe should correct me if I'm wrong, but the sense of losing your personal security. The surroundings which you are used to relating to as a safe surroundings, not concerning yourself if you can walk this street or the other street without giving up on your identity, has received a shake in Israel, but in the certain communities have received a shake in the past 2-3 years in the States due to anti-Semitic happenings, be it graffiti on buildings, be it breaking of windows or discriminating cemeteries and so on shootings, of course, cause a shake to personal security. And I do believe that on that issue, we do share common ground. And we can support each other because I believe we need support from each other. And on that aspect, your support is a huge comfort to us all. I'm not sure if I missed out any other questions, but if there are questions which we did not relate to, please.
There are two more questions. One is I will refer to about the Women Living in Dialogue, since I coordinate this program of the Partnership Together, which we already had two cohorts that visited the United States with Jewish and Arab women participants. And this year we started the third cohort with 10 Jewish and 10 Arab Muslim women from Akko and the region. And following what happened, the first two cohorts met. It was very important for them to meet and to show, that they still they're very good friends, and it didn't hurt their friendship, and they really want to to show people how good friends they are, to be in cafes, to go around the city, and that's what they're planning to do, to show that they are together. And the third cohort, it was very challenging because most of our meetings were on Zoom, so the group is not yet, is not yet connected as the two others, but we had very good 2 meetings following the riots, and it was the rules for dialogue were very clear from the beginning. So we practiced it, and people listened to one another. They really practiced dialogue, and it was hurting. It was hard, but it was good because they really listened to one another. And I think we can grow from it. And we already had a few meetings afterwards, and every meeting is, it's becoming, the bonds between us becoming closer. And so I think we understand that this is the way, it's the only way. And there's another question about the Arab leaders.
I would like to relate to that. First of all, I would like to say that where I live in Regba, we have we are immediate neighbors to quite a large Arab village called Mazra, and youth tried to start rioting there, and the head of the village got on the loudspeakers of the mosque and demanded that the families come and take their kids home and do not enable them to cause damage on a relationship which took years, if not tens of years, to build, and it worked there. I'm not sure that each and every community, the leaders, the local leadership, had the guts to do what he did. And even if some of them did do, as we explained before, there is no respect to authority, and not necessarily these youths were open to hear their calls. So I'm not sure it would be fully just to criticize them, although I'm not sure that all communities, the leaders, as I said, had the guts to get up and call for calm. There is a question, was the violence motivated more by criminals rather than politically, or was it motivated from both? I do believe that it's a mixture of both. It's each one adds fuel to the fire, and I can imagine that it's a mixture of both, although the basic element comes from people who do not respect the law, and the criminal aspect is probably more dominant.
Yeah, I have to comment on that. I believe a little bit differently. I think the triggered was politically, but it led to something more criminal than it's political, because most of the youth that were actually arrested doesn't know anything about Sheikh Jarrah or what's going on. So you have to know the facts. People, maybe it started it, maybe there's a need, there's a rush in them, they would love to make a mess. The extremists wanted to end this by making, the riots and everything else. We let them win, actually, if they get their desire. Some people are really interested in this mess. And the more they get there, they're happy. One of the samples, I could give the opposite from the mosque in Akko. At one of the night, I can't remember if it was the first night, second night, somebody came up with the speakers of the mosque. I don't know if Albert knows this. I heard this from my house. And he said, oh, they're burning the mosque. Come in, go down to the mosque and help us protect it. And none of this were real. So somebody was really interested to make it extreme, and it wasn't. In a few seconds, Sheikh Samir Al-Asi and Sheikh Youssef came up in the social media, Instagram, Facebook, saying, listen, we're taking pictures of them and we're taking a movie of the mosque. Nothing is really happening. Stay home, everything's fine. So I was wondering, who did this? What's the motive of a person trying to pretend that somebody is, as Albert said, they didn't touch the synagogues, they didn't touch the mosque. Nobody went into there. So some people are really interested in the extreme. And by the way, they're not the majority, they're actually the minority. We just have to be aware of where they're taking us. I don't want the minority to lead the majority by saying such an extreme thing, and they actually will win if they can cause all of this. So our action should be, from my point of view, I went to the educational ministry. We're working out together to make more programs, even available for all the youth on North to be connected to what's going on at ACAT, to bring them the shared society actually as a former education that they should have, formal education that they should have within their day school. It's something you study as you study English, Hebrew, mathematics. You have to study about a shared society because it's a part of the skills you need and you need to be provided with so you can win actually this, and we can be stronger shared society. And by the way, I have to admit, I have a better understanding now with the municipality, with the Ministry of Education. We're starting new programs to bring people together, which is very, very important at this point. It's very sad that we're doing this in a delay, but it's better than nothing, because I believe we are preparing, to a better future together. And we just started a great movie with the help of the municipality also. We had some funders gave us money for the COVID-19 to do a movie for awareness of the vaccine. We shifted it automatically to do a unity movie, which be really moving. You're probably going to watch it in a week on our website or something, because we brought people together, people from the city. It's not leaders, it's not community leaders, it's not religion leaders, it's just people and the view of Akko, and they talk together how they do things together. It's really moving. I really recommend it. Within the next week, you can watch it.
We very much like to. I'm afraid we're out of time, and we've managed to fill our hour to its utmost.
Bob is raising his hand. Bob Kasselman. Do we have time?
Yeah, sure.
Well, thank you, everybody, for this really amazing and open discussion. So my question is, P2G has initiated a shared society fund, so I wanted to ask if you have new ideas for new programming.
I'll answer that. This is, I was going to talk about it. Okay. And are we doing a closure? Because I know that I'm doing the closure, so I'll answer in the closure. So
okay.
Hi everybody. So I'm Sharon Chai, the director of the partnership. Thank you. First of all, thank you. Not to forget, thank you. So thank you to Michael and all our, we call it panel, but the participants, Naim, Albert, Yona, for stepping forward and agreeing to open your heart and tell us, you know, what you feel, because it is, after all, not an easy subject to talk about. And as Michael mentioned, Ahmed was supposed to be here. We're all good. We spoke a lot, but some of us really are still very sensitive and hurtful and painful, feel pain about the situation and not ready to talk publicly about it or to be exposed to their feelings. Thank you to Elisha, and I think that Leslie also joined, so to our leadership, and thank you to Avital and Gil for organizing the panel and doing all the work behind the scenes. When you walk around Akko, you can see that already buildings are cleaned up and there is some renovation, and we know that buildings will be fixed. But the trust between people in shared society, that will take time. And this is where, to your question, Bob, we know that many of the communities in the US, in our community, in the consortium, wanted support. And we did we are going to open officially a fund that we even found some seed monies for the fund. I think it's going to be about $10,000. We're not close about that yet. And we have one community, San Antonio, who already raised some money, so that also will join the fund. As probably many of you know, that we have our COC, our budget and project approval date in 2 weeks, and in the COC itself, we're going to spend some time on talking about shared society and what are we going to go and do going forward with that. And our plan is really, once the COC is over, probably August or maybe a little bit after, we're going to start a process of a roundtable. We realize that we're not going to fix the world or Akko in our partnership, but we thought that we're going to invite all the participants in our program, in our shared society. And by the way, we have more than Women Leading Dialogue. We have about 5 or 6 programs already going on that deal with shared society. So we're going to invite all the participants or other people that are interested, you know, in partnership and our American friends, partners, and we're going to do roundtables, and we're going to think, you know, what we're going to do going forward. We did realize from the past few weeks, talking to people, including Albert, Naim, you know, many people, that it's probably going to be around education, culture, and language. And Naim, when you mentioned that you understood what the Imam said, you know, at that night, you know, I cannot understand that. Albert probably can a little bit, I mean, I don't know how fluently, but us, you know, Jewish Israelis don't speak Arabs, and the language is really important there. So did I answer your question, Bob? Okay, so not to take any more time, just really thank you so much, everybody. And it's really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. You did answer my question.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. This was
Bye.
great. Thank you. Excellent program.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.